Guys, very excited, like I said, to be joining us. We've got Ari and Wayne with, and make sure I say it right. Is it Offit? Is it how you say it?
Offit Kurman.
Offit Kurman. I just want to make sure I said Offit. So we got them with Offit Kurman, attorney at law, and excited to have you guys here today. I think compliance and law is one of those things that is so often overlooked in our industry. It's kind of everybody's nervous about it. Everybody's not sure when it comes to it. And let's just be honest, because I want to bring some fun and some light into this. It's a very serious topic, which is serious, but at the same time, it's something that everybody should be aware of. They should be looking at, because regulatory agencies are real, and the last thing we want is anybody to get hit, to be screwed over. So let's start with Ari. Let's start with you. First and foremost, you've been doing this for a long time. You understand compliance. Anybody who doesn't know Ari, I mean, you're one of those guys in the industry when it comes to compliance. Your name is everywhere, and you just understand. You've had a long background in the industry.
Yeah, thank you. And I think one of the big things, just to add to what you were saying, and it sort of gives my outlook on stuff, is it's not always about what can happen to you. It's about what you can do as well. In other words, if you know the lines, I use this analogy sometimes talking about a football field. If you're playing football field on the top of a New York skyscraper, right, and you didn't know where the boundaries are and you didn't have strong boundaries set up at the edge of the building, you'd play in a really, really small part of that building, right? You wouldn't go very far. Business is kind of the same way if you think about it. If you don't know exactly where the boundaries are and you don't have good compliance that surrounds what you do, you have to self-contain, and all of that space that you're missing on that building is lost business opportunity. So I think a lot of times what compliance can bring, especially when it comes from an entrepreneurial mindset, is talk about what you can do, not what you can't do.
Ooh, that's a very good point.
It's an excellent point. And you know, for example, licensing.
Okay.
I think there's a lot of mystery around, particularly a small broker. How do I get into another state? How do I do business in New York or Pennsylvania if I'm in New Jersey? And really, if you look into it and you know the compliance and the requirements for licensing, it's not that difficult anymore. For example, it used to be you'd need to have offices in each state or a lot of states where you did business. That's not the case anymore. And through NMLS now, licensing in a multi-state environment is really quite easy and efficient if you know how to do it. And Ari and I do that, and certainly we can help people who are looking to do that.
Well, and I think that. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was just saying, it was very funny. Right before I came over here, somebody came to me and said, we got this very vanilla comp plan, and is there anything we could do? Because I know there's these laws, and we basically can't do anything, right? And I said, no, actually, there's a lot of things you can do. You can pay different between purchase and refi. And I gave him a whole, you can have a channel which the different comp for self-sourced versus company-sourced. And I went in, ticked off, 5-10 different things they could do, and he was looking at me with an amazement, thinking, wow, we got to talk further. So there really is, if you think about it, those business opportunities that people think that are, look, we've got enough constraints, right? There are enough legal constraints out there. We don't need to invent more, but many, many, many people do.
That's very true. So, and kind of continuing on with that, I mean, you mentioned the entrepreneurial, we're seeing this shift from, we're here at the broker, that's what we're talking a lot about broker. We're seeing that shift, Wayne, and what's the biggest concern, or what's the biggest mistake, if you will, that you're seeing that people transitioning from the retail side to the broker side, especially as they're trying to be entrepreneurs, they're trying to be business owners? What mistakes are they making that they really should be aware of?
Well, it's funny, when Dodd-Frank came out, obviously it spurred a number of regulatory changes.
Sure.
QM, the qualified mortgage, TRID with the new disclosures. Those haven't really, to a large degree, impacted the broker that much. LO Comp has, and I think there's, Ari touched on LO Comp, but the basic is you can't pay based on a term of the loan or a proxy for a term of the loan. That's easily said, but when you put it into practice, it's very complicated. And I think the broker has some flexibility, and a lot of times they don't even know. Ari talked about knowing where the lines are. It's important to know on the LO Comp, what you can do and what you can't do. On the borrower side, borrower paid side, there's a lot you can do. There's a lot of flexibility. And the lender doesn't have that particular flexibility. So that's something I think a lot of brokers put limits on how they're paying compensation to their people when they don't necessarily have to. That's one area. And then we get into things like state particularly in the multi-state environment. A broker does business in 3, 4, 5 states. Each state has their own requirements. You come into New Jersey, you have to know the rules about what you can charge and how you can charge it and how you should disclose it. And you go into Pennsylvania, it's a little different. I think people jump into another state without necessarily reviewing in detail exactly what they have to do and how they have to disclose it. I think those are some of the problems I see. I don't know.
Yeah.
How about you?
Yeah, and the problem, just to pick up on what Wayne said, is you learn about that when it's too late, like afterwards, and now you get fines. But I think the thing that a lot of people make a mistake on is, one of my areas of practice, other than the sort of my background, is actually employment law.
Wow.
And so I think that's a big mistake people don't think about. They think about sometimes they think about the compliance, but even less times do they think about the employment law implications of things. So, when you leave a company, for example, and you take a bunch of employees and then you take some information, and all of a sudden you could find yourself in a very difficult situation, even if you don't have a contract, because there's certain things called fiduciary duties and state privacy laws. And, we just handled a case where it was really dicey. And I remember talking to my client and asking, well, why did you take this hard drive of this computer? And he said, well, I didn't really need it. Why not? Well, that why not caused a major problem, right? Involving a state attorney general seeking information. You know what I'm saying? You're telling me you really didn't? No, I haven't even opened the thing. Well, that's great. I'm glad you took it, right? Because now, things like this are totally avoidable if people had thought about it, were aware of it. There is that aspect of just, as I said, on one hand, you can be more aggressive in entrepreneur, but there's also places where you have to be careful and know those rules. It's knowing the rules. And this guy took stuff having truly, I don't believe he thought for a second.
He wasn't being malicious. He wasn't trying to be like, he just didn't think about it. And I think that's where Offit Kurman really comes and plays such a crucial role, if you will, because we're the experts of we know our craft. We know the loan process. We're really good at that. But when it comes to law, we don't know jack. And so I think it's having partners like you guys to be able to turn okay, guys. And people are, well, it's expensive. It's way more expensive to get your business shut down or to get some lawsuit thrown at you. I don't think people think about that. They're like, well, I'm trying to run lean. I'm trying to. Great. Understand. We're all trying to save a buck. We all want to, we're all in this for the same reason. But in the long run, being able to work with guys like yourselves who really understand it, so you don't make the stupid small mistakes like you're talking about, Ari.
Yeah. And I think, Josh, one of the other things. Sorry, Wayne. But is I think that's true. But I think also sometimes, I hate to say it, but I do believe it. People almost want to be in ignorant bliss, right? They're so used to dealing with attorneys. And I'm an attorney, so I'm going to criticize my own group here, okay? But they are very used to attorneys who don't know how to say yes. Everything is no. No, you can't do that. No, a meteor might come, and if a meteor comes, then, right? And look, I've dealt with them. They drive me crazy. That's not how I practice. That's not how Wayne practices. The point is that I think people are so used to that at times that they don't actually want to hear all the things they can't do.
Oh.
And so it's almost like, well, I'll do this, and I didn't know what I was doing wrong, so it's okay. And I wish I could talk to them and reach them and say, it doesn't always have to be like that. That's who you're used to dealing with. Not everyone is like that. And there are other people who say yes to a lot of things, but you really shouldn't be in ignorant bliss, because when you look at that hard drive and think it's the same as a stapler.
Very different.
Right? Sometimes it's just about doing the thing that isn't really going to help you, that you don't need to do, and having that type of advice. Does that make sense?
Oh, 100% it makes complete sense. But again, I just, like you said, I don't think that's forefront. I don't think it's not discussed a lot in our industry. And I think the discussion just needs to happen more often, which actually gives me an idea. This is a discussion that should be happening more regularly, almost a podcast of being able to talk about these things. And maybe guys, that's why I love going live, is because you can spitfire ideas, but that might be a good discussion point. So, Wayne, I know, again, there's a lot of things that loan officers, originators, but you're talking about the yeses, Ari. So, Wayne, what are some of the yeses that you guys are? What are some of the things that loan officers, you can really help them with?
Yeah, well, Ari hit on one area, which is typically overlooked by brokers and lenders alike, which is wage and hour. One of the things I like being at Offit is not only do we have regulatory compliance attorneys, we have people like Ari who also have a real expertise in wage and hour and things of that nature. And for example, people think they have to pay minimum wage or overtime to all their employees. Well, people like Ari I go to and say, well, perhaps this person's an outside salesperson, they qualify for that exemption, maybe we can just pay them pure commission. We have to put the right policies and procedures in place. We have to have the right business records to support that. but perhaps that's a way where we can avoid paying the hourly wage and the overtime, which might be an expense for a mortgage broker that he doesn't have to have. One thing coming out, which is very exciting, is transitional licensing. We have we have a dual license system here, where the banks just basically register loan officers.
Yeah.
No education, no testing.
Yep.
It's a simple filing. When those people want to come over and work for a mortgage broker, they got to take the test, they got to take the education, and upon doing so, their employer, the bank, learns about that.
Exactly.
And it puts them in a very awkward position.
Very awkward. Yep.
So starting in November in New Jersey, we're going to be able to, as a broker community, go solicit those people who are now working for the banks, bring them in, and upon filing an application with your mortgage company, they'll be able to work for 4 months for you. And in New Jersey, that's more than enough time to get someone
licensing and everything
in New Jersey. Maybe in some other states it'll be a challenge, maybe New York and some others, but certainly it'll provide at least 4 months, so you won't have that gap in your pipeline.
Yeah.
That currently occurs when you go from the bank to the independent
And that's what
mortgage broker.
scares so many loan officers about making a change, is because there is that gap. So this transition, that's a big step. That's a big win for the mortgage industry, because there are a lot of people wanting to make that transition or even looking at it, but then they're like, oh, like almost goes back to what you're talking about, Ari, is people are like, well, there's the no's, there's always the negatives, but we're not educated on it. So being able to have the discussions, being able to reach out to you guys and being able to answer those questions, I just think don't be scared to ask. Like, you have to just be willing to, hey, pick up the phone and just make a simple phone call. So I think it's something, again, that is so widely not only just overlooked, but it's something that people are a little bit nervous about. Whenever you talk about an attorney, talk about law, everybody's just like, oh, somebody's getting sued. But it's protecting is really what it comes down to. It's looking forward to the future and not, like I said, not getting yourself in trouble long term. So
Let me just say, I've been doing this. I was with the banking department for 10 years as their counsel, and then for about 20 years I've been working for mortgage companies. After the collapse 10 years ago, very few people had interest in forming mortgage brokers or remaining in the mortgage brokerage industry. That's all changed. I've probably gotten 6-7 clients just in the last month or two, working for big lenders, had a branch or whatever, and want to form a mortgage brokerage company, and we're doing that for them. And it's certainly a great opportune time to do it, and we're seeing a lot of interest in it. It's good to see again. Good to see the brokerage community coming back.
I say it's kind of cool to see, but that just puts you guys in a really cool position as well to help educate those who are making that switch over. So it's really exciting and awesome to see what you guys are doing. Again, really being that they're in the forefront of educating our industry when it comes to law and the things that we really should be looking at. So final thoughts, let's kind of start wrapping things up here. Is there anything in particular that you guys see that, like I said, that when somebody is looking to make that change, what should they be calling? Should it be a first call to you guys? Like, hey, what should we be looking at? What should we be expecting? What are your guys' thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's the old adage, look before you leap. I think it's good to spend an hour on the phone with an attorney, talk about the different benefits of different types of organizational structures, where you are, what your plans are going to be, what things you should or shouldn't do when you're in the transition process, what are the things that this isn't a long discussion. It's usually an hour or less, right?
Yeah.
I think that hour, I mean, from a cost benefit,
priceless.
As you said, yeah,
priceless.
It's a multiple factor, right,
Yep.
in terms of what you pay. So I think that's a really good thing because it just tells you the stop points. And I do that with a lot of people where I'll just spend an hour, give them the different stop points, and I'll even say, at some point, hey, let's not go that far. Let's not talk about what you do when you have 10 employees. We can discuss it
when we get there.
Yeah, when we get there. So it's kind of knowing how far to go in the conversation and not far. But I do think sort of those first kind of steps. Wayne said, if you're going to go into certain states, what states? How do you figure out what are the resources? Right, a lot of times they're not necessarily, you don't necessarily need lawyers, but lawyers can tell you or direct you to places where there are resources that you need for those initial steps. Wayne and I, our view of the world is more about long-term relationships. So I think when somebody like that comes out, I mean, it's not about trying to sell them on something day one.
Sure.
It's about creating that trust so that when they have 100 employees, they come back and they talk to us. If
Exactly.
If that makes sense.
It's that like any of us, it's that long-term relationship.
Yeah.
It's winning that trust in the beginning. So, Wayne, what are your final thoughts on that?
No, one of the exciting parts of my practice over the years has been I've taught mortgage bankers for more than 20 years. We've had classes for licensing and so on. And taking someone from the class and getting them licensed for the first time. Sometimes, just a mom and pop, a couple people, and then I walk in 6 months or a year later, and there's 20 people there, and then going in, and all of a sudden, they're a big successful mortgage company. I do warn people though when they make the leap or about to make the leap. We're not just lawyers. We've seen, from A to Z how it works and how it doesn't work, and you have to plan for the fact that, for example, a lot of these people are successful mortgage originators.
Of course.
They have a great book of business. But what they don't realize, unless they plan for starting a company, I tell them, today you're spending your entire 24 hours thinking about how to originate loans. If you go out and form a mortgage brokerage company and you expect to do it yourself, you're going to be spending time talking to people like Ari and I. You're going to be talking to your accountant. You're going to be talking to your IT people, and all of a sudden it'll be 3 o'clock and you haven't thought about a loan all day.
Yeah.
I say you have to take care of that other part of it. And that's not legal advice. That's kind of business advice. But
yeah.
I think it's as important as the legal advice that we provide.
If not more important. I think that's something that's not being discussed as much. And so many people are just like, oh yeah, I'm jumping into this feet first. Like you said, Ari, they're not planning. They're not thinking ahead. They're just like, I'm going for it. I'm ready for change. But you guys are there to kind of walk them through. Okay, let's take a step back real quick. Let's walk through everything. When people are entrepreneurs, when they're owning their own business, there's not all those little things that they think about. So even just having that discussion, like you said, having an hour discussion can absolutely open eyes and be like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I don't need to jump feet first. Maybe I should really think about this long term. And again, that's why you guys, everything that Offit Kurman is doing, you guys are doing an incredible job. You guys are absolutely two of the most respected and knowledgeable when it comes to law and the entire mortgage and real estate industry. So
thank you.
Guys, if you're thinking about making a change, you absolutely need to reach out to them because they can help you. And I want to touch on this real quick, Ari. It's an investment. If you're looking to make that change, it's an investment in your business. Don't look at it as just a cost.
Yep.
Spending an hour with you. If you're going to be making the jump, and if you're going to be that entrepreneur, it's absolutely willing to invest in that hour to sit down and talk with these guys before you make a mistake that then you get in deep and then you're over your head. And next thing you know, then you really need these guys' services. So that's what we want to avoid if at all possible. Yeah. So cannot thank Wayne and Ari enough for joining us this afternoon and just hanging out with us. And again, guys, what's the best way to get in contact with you guys? If website or email or phone?
I think email or phone works for probably either of us, and you can find us on the website as well.
Perfect.
So,
what's the website?
offitkurman.com.
offitkurman.com. We'll actually post it. Dal's here live, so I'll have Dal posted in the link below. If you guys have any questions for them, if you're looking to make a change, make sure you guys give them a call because you will absolutely be beneficial to your business. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Always a pleasure.